Hey everyone. Don't forget to subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to know what you think about the characters and their choices. Enjoy the story. I never imagined my life would end up like this. Looking back, I can see how everything slowly started to shift. But at the time, I was just living my life, trying to make sense of the emptiness I felt in my own home. I've been married to John for almost 7 years now. I met him when we were in college, and from the very beginning, it felt like everything was meant to be. He was smart, stable, and always had everything figured out. But recently, I've noticed a growing distance between us. He worked long hours, went on business trips, and by the time he came home, he was exhausted. Our conversations became shorter, and intimacy, well, that almost didn't exist anymore. At first, I tried to talk to him about it. I'd say things like, "We never spend time together," or, "I miss you." But he would brush it off, saying things like, "I'm doing this for us, for our future." Which, I understood. We had a good life together. A nice apartment, the dream job, and a comfortable routine. But somewhere along the way, I stopped feeling like his partner. I felt like I was just there. I started to get lost in my own thoughts, trying to figure out what was missing in my life. I'd go to work, do my job, come home, and repeat. My days felt hollow, and I found myself craving something more. I didn't want to admit it, but I was lonely. Really lonely. It was around this time that Tim started working at the office. He was in his mid-20s, a little younger than me, and just starting his career in marketing. He was the type of guy who was always smiling, always making people feel at ease. He was charming, and I'll admit, I felt a little drawn to him. It started off innocently enough, just casual office banter. But Tim was a good listener, and I soon found myself confiding in him about how things were with John. How I felt invisible. How everything felt routine. He didn't judge me, he listened, and for the first time in months, I felt like someone truly understood me. One afternoon, we were staying late at the office, working on a project together. It was quiet, just the two of us in the conference room, and as we were wrapping up, he looked at me and said something that would change everything. "You know," he said, his tone almost casual, "I've been hearing a lot of people talk about OnlyFans. It's a platform where you can post whatever you want, and people actually pay for your content. A lot of women are doing it. It's not like what people think it is. You don't have to post anything that feels wrong, just tasteful stuff, like behind the scenes shots, maybe a bit of a personal touch. You can even make money off it." I blinked, unsure of how to respond. I'd heard about it. Who hadn't? But it always seemed like something not quite right for someone like me. I had never considered it before, but Tim's words lingered in my mind. He continued, almost sensing my hesitation. "Look, I'm not saying you should do it," he said, a little sheepish now. "But I can tell you're creative, you've got that whole social media thing down. I think you could totally pull it off if you wanted to. A lot of women are doing it for the extra income. And honestly, there's a big market for it. You can set your boundaries, and it's all in your control." I paused, feeling a mix of curiosity and discomfort. Was this something I should be considering? "I don't know," I muttered. I'm not exactly sure if that's for me." Tim gave me a reassuring smile. "No pressure. Just think about it. It could be a way to get back something for yourself, something just for you." The next few days were a blur of uncertainty. Tim's suggestion kept creeping into my thoughts. Could I really do something like that? But then, the more I thought about it, the more I realized how appealing it sounded. In a way, it was empowering. I could create content on my own terms, get attention from people who appreciated me, and maybe even make some extra money. I had nothing to lose. So, I did what any person in my position would do. I Googled it. The more I read about OnlyFans, the more I felt a strange sense of excitement. It wasn't just about nudity or sex. Some people used it to share art, fitness tips, and even cooking recipes. I could do something like that, right? Post my thoughts, my fashion ideas, maybe a few shots of my outfits, nothing too risque, just a way to express myself. I knew John would never understand if he found out. Hell, he barely noticed what I was doing anymore. And maybe, just maybe, this was my chance to feel like me again, to reclaim some part of myself that had been buried under the weight of routine and responsibility. It was late one night when I decided to go for it. I signed up, created my account, and started posting. At first, it felt weird. Posting a picture of myself in a cute outfit, typing out a personal message to my followers. But with each new follower and each positive comment, I felt a little more alive. The attention was intoxicating. People liked my photos, commented on my style, and I felt like I had a little piece of me back. I didn't expect it to become anything serious. It was just something small, something on the side. I kept telling myself it was harmless. But the truth was, it was the first time in months that I felt seen, heard, and wanted. And that feeling, well, it was something I didn't want to give up so easily. At first, everything was under control. I kept my OnlyFans account as a secret from John, and I told myself that it was nothing more than a little hobby. Something to distract me from the loneliness. I didn't even think I'd make that much money off it. But it was enough to satisfy my ego and make me feel special for a change. Every like, every comment, made me feel like I was actually seen by someone, and that feeling was better than I had felt in a long time. But things started to change the longer I kept it up. The attention became addictive, and the feedback from my followers began to fuel a side of me I didn't even know was there. I was getting compliments on my style, my smile, and even the way I carried myself. It was nothing obscene, just flattering and positive. I posted more often, interacting with followers, building up a small following who were genuinely interested in me, or at least in what I was sharing. It felt like a secret world I could escape to whenever the reality of my marriage became too heavy. One day, after a particularly long week where John had been working late every night, I received a message from one of my subscribers. His name was James, and he was polite, friendly, and respectful. He wasn't pushy or inappropriate. Just someone who appreciated my posts. "Hey Lisa, just wanted to say I love your style. You've got this real elegance about you that's rare to see on here." His message read. I smiled, feeling that little rush of validation again. It wasn't just about the money. Though, I won't lie, the extra cash was nice. It was about the recognition. No one had really noticed me like that for years, not since before I married John. I responded, a little flattered. "Thank you, that means a lot. I've always loved fashion, but it's hard to get noticed in a sea of influencers." He replied almost immediately. "You definitely stand out. You should think about doing more exclusive content. You'd do great." At first, I brushed it off. I wasn't ready for anything more than what I was already posting. Just a few cute outfits, some personal thoughts, nothing too daring. But the more I thought about it, the more tempting the idea became. Maybe I could push a little further. Maybe, just maybe, I could find a way to feel more confident in my own skin. But there was a part of me that still hesitated, especially when I thought about John. It wasn't like I was cheating on him. I wasn't meeting anyone in person. I wasn't even sharing anything that explicit. But still, there was something gnawing at the back of my mind. I kept telling myself it was harmless. I was just doing this for me. One evening, as John was wrapping up a call in the other room, I sat on the couch, scrolling through my account. That's when I saw it. A direct message from James that wasn't as innocent as the others. He had sent a request for an exclusive photo. His message was clear. "I'd love to see more of you. Just for me. I think you'd look amazing in something a little more revealing. Nothing crazy, just you being yourself." I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. I knew I could just ignore it, but the temptation was too strong. My heart pounded in my chest. What was the harm? A photo? A little more skin? Nothing major. I rationalized it in my head. I sent him a photo of me in lingerie. It wasn't raunchy, just a simple shot of me in something pretty. It felt empowering in a way I hadn't expected. And the response from James was immediate. "Whoa, you look incredible, Lisa. You've got something really special. If you ever feel like sharing more, I'm definitely here." His words hit me in a way I wasn't prepared for. There was something about his validation, the way he appreciated my body, that made me feel alive. I could tell myself that it was just for fun, just a harmless exchange, but deep down, I knew it was more than that. That night, John came into the living room, his face tired from a long day. He barely acknowledged me as he sank into the couch next to me. "Hey, babe, how was your day?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Busy," he replied, barely looking up. "Got a lot of stuff going on. Did you get a chance to make dinner? I'm starving." I forced a smile. "Yeah, I'll heat something up in a minute." But I couldn't help the thought that flashed through my mind. He doesn't even notice me anymore. As I heated up leftovers, my phone buzzed with another message from James. "Hey, just wondering, if you were ever interested in doing something a little more personal, I'd be willing to compensate you for it. I think you'd make a lot of money if you did more exclusive work." I stared at the message, my heart racing. I knew what I was doing was crossing a line, but in that moment, I couldn't bring myself to stop. I wanted to feel wanted. I wanted to feel desirable. And if that meant sending a few more photos, maybe even getting paid for it, then so be it. That night, I did what I knew was a mistake, but I couldn't stop myself. I sent James a more intimate photo. It wasn't fully nude, but it was definitely more revealing than anything I had posted before. The validation I got back was overwhelming. I leaned back against the couch, guilt mixing with excitement in my chest. I knew I couldn't keep doing this forever, but right now, it felt like the only thing that made me feel alive. But I also knew something was changing. And I couldn't shake the feeling that I was getting deeper into something I wouldn't be able to get out of. Everything seemed to spiral quickly from that point. I'd continued posting on OnlyFans, sending private messages to my followers, interacting with them more and more. Each day felt like I was pulling further away from John, but I couldn't stop myself. The attention, the compliments, the rush, it all felt so intoxicating. And, at the same time, it felt like I was slipping deeper into a world where I didn't have to confront my marriage, the loneliness I felt, or the emptiness I carried inside. But like everything that seems too good to be true, my secret life was bound to catch up with me. It happened on a Tuesday evening, just like any other. John was in the study, and I was sitting in the living room, scrolling through my phone. I thought I heard him mumble something from the other room, but I didn't pay it much attention. It was almost like a background hum, his usual murmuring about work. But then, the hum grew louder. "Lisa," he called, his voice tinged with confusion. I froze. My stomach dropped as I heard the unmistakable sound of his footsteps coming toward the living room. My heart started pounding in my chest. Was he coming in here? Was he going to ask me about my phone? Could he have found out? I quickly locked the screen of my phone and shoved it into my purse, my palms slick with sweat. I stood up, trying to act casual, but I was anything but calm. John entered the room, his face a mix of disbelief and frustration. "Liza," he said again, his voice sharp now. "I need to ask you something." I swallowed hard. "What's wrong?" John looked at me, his eyes narrowing. "What is this?" He held up my phone and my heart stopped. It was my OnlyFans account. On the screen, a picture of me in lingerie was open, and the direct messages were still visible. It was the one I'd sent to James a few days earlier. The one that was more intimate than anything I'd shared before. I didn't know what to say. The silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. John, I stammered, my mind racing for an explanation. But the truth was, there was no easy way to explain this. There was no excuse for it. He threw the phone down on the coffee table and looked at me, his eyes full of hurt. "What the hell is this, Lisa? Is this what you've been doing behind my back? Are you really doing this? How long has this been going on?" I could see the anger building in him, and it made me want to curl up into a ball and disappear. I opened my mouth, but the words felt like they were stuck in my throat. I wanted to tell him it wasn't what it looked like, that I wasn't cheating on him, that I was just trying to feel something. But I couldn't bring myself to say that out loud. I didn't even know where to begin. I don't know what to say," I whispered, my voice cracking. "It started off small, I swear. Just some pictures, some harmless stuff." John's face twisted in disbelief. "Harmless? Do you think that's harmless? You're out here sending half-naked pictures to strangers for money, and you call it harmless? I don't even know who you are anymore." He ran a hand through his hair, pacing the room. "And you didn't even think to tell me, to talk to me about it." His voice cracked with frustration. "I'm here, working my ass off, and you're doing this, behind my back. For attention." I could feel the tears welling up, but I refused to let them fall. I was too ashamed, too embarrassed to cry in front of him. "I didn't mean to hurt you, John," I said quietly. "It's just, I don't know. I've been feeling so invisible, I guess, and I didn't think anyone would care if I posted stuff like that. I wasn't trying to be bad. I didn't want to hurt you." John looked at me, his eyes colder than I had ever seen them. "But you did hurt me, Lisa. You hurt me in a way that I can't even wrap my head around." He shook his head, backing away. "I thought we had something real, you know. But you've been living in some fantasy world, doing whatever the hell you want, without a second thought." I tried to reach out to him, but he stepped back. "John, please," I pleaded. "Please, just listen." But he cut me off. "I don't want to hear it. You can't just do something like this and expect me to just move on. You violated my trust, Lisa. I don't even know how to look at you right now." The hurt in his voice cut me deeper than any words ever could. He didn't understand, though. He didn't know how lonely I had felt, how invisible I had become to him. But I couldn't explain that to him now. I'd already lost him. And I knew it. He turned away from me, his shoulders slumping as he made his way to the door. "I can't be here right now. I need space. You figure out what you've done." He didn't even wait for me to respond. The door slammed behind him, leaving me standing in the middle of the room, my heart in pieces. I felt numb. I stood there for what felt like hours, my mind racing, but I couldn't process anything. How had it come to this? How had I allowed myself to get so deep into something that hurt him so much? It was in that moment that I realized I couldn't undo the damage. I had crossed a line, and there was no going back. But as much as it hurt to admit, I also knew that I wasn't the only one to blame. John hadn't been there for me either. He'd been lost in his work, and I'd felt abandoned. But still, none of that could excuse what I had done. And now, it was too late. The silence in the house felt suffocating. I couldn't shake the image of John walking out the door, his back turned to me as if he was walking away from everything we had built together. My mind raced with thoughts and emotions, but none of them seemed to make sense. The overwhelming weight of my actions was starting to sink in, and it felt like a brick had been dropped on my chest. I stayed in the living room, sitting on the couch where John had stood just moments ago. The phone with the OnlyFans account sat on the coffee table, its screen still showing the messages I'd exchanged with James. I couldn't bear to look at it anymore. My hands shook as I picked it up and powered it off. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to fix everything, but I didn't know where to start. The next few hours were a blur. I texted John, but he didn't respond. I called him, but the calls went straight to voicemail. I knew he was probably too angry to talk to me right now, but I couldn't help but hope that, somehow, he'd come back. That this was just a bad moment, and we could figure it out. The reality, though, was sinking in fast. John was hurt. Deeply. And I had done that to him. I had betrayed his trust, and now, I was paying the price. I spent the evening in a haze, not knowing what to do with myself. I didn't even feel like I was in my own skin. The guilt was overwhelming, suffocating, and I wanted nothing more than to go back in time and undo everything. I couldn't believe how easily I had justified my actions. I had told myself that it was harmless, that I wasn't cheating, but in my heart, I knew I had crossed a line. That night, I stayed up late, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in my mind. I kept going over our conversations, the way John had looked at me, how he had tried to understand, but then how everything had shattered when he saw the truth. I couldn't escape the feeling that I had lost him forever. The next morning, I woke up to an empty house. John hadn't come home. My heart sank when I realized that the silence wasn't just the absence of sound, it was the absence of him. I had never felt more alone. I couldn't remember the last time I'd been this lonely, not even before I had met him. The space in our home seemed to swallow me up, and I felt like I was drowning. I tried calling him again, but this time, he answered. "John, please, I need to talk to you," I said, my voice trembling. There was a long pause before he spoke. His voice was cold, distant. "Liza, I don't think there's anything left to talk about." "But I'm so sorry," I said quickly. "I never meant for it to go this far. I didn't mean to hurt you. Please, can we just talk? I want to fix this." There was a heavy sigh on the other end of the line. "You've already done enough damage, Lisa. I don't know if I can ever forgive you for this. I don't know if I even want to." I felt a lump form in my throat. "Please, John, don't say that. Love you. I never stopped loving you. I don't know what happened. I was so lonely, and I didn't know how to deal with it. I made a mistake. You don't get it, do you?" His voice was sharp now, but underneath the anger, I could hear the hurt. "You say you love me, but you chose to do this behind my back. You didn't think of me for even a second while you were doing it. You've ruined everything." The words stung, and I felt them pierce through me like 1,000 needles. I couldn't say anything else. I was lost for words. "I need time, Lisa," he said, his voice quieter now. "I don't know if I can come back from this. I need to think." And with that, he hung up. I collapsed onto the couch, my body shaking. I knew what he meant. He was gone. And in some twisted way, I knew I had pushed him to this point. It wasn't just the photos or the messages. It was the years of neglect, the loneliness that had built up inside me, and the lack of communication between us. I had acted on my own insecurities without considering how it would affect him. I stayed home the entire day, staring at the walls, feeling the weight of my actions crushing me. There was no easy fix, no quick solution. I had betrayed the person I loved, and now, there was no turning back. I couldn't undo what I had done. No matter how many times I replayed the situation in my head, days passed, and I kept trying to reach out to John, but he wouldn't answer. He wasn't responding to my calls, my texts, or even my emails. He had blocked me on social media, and it felt like he had erased me from his life completely. It was as if he had cut me out, and in a way, I understood why. I had shattered his trust. I had torn down everything we had worked for. It wasn't until a week later that I heard from him again. It was a brief message. One sentence: "I'm staying with a friend for now. I need space to figure this out. Don't contact me again." I read the message over and over again, my heart breaking every time. It was final. It was over. I don't know if he'll ever come back. Part of me hopes that, with time, we can rebuild what we had. But I also know that there's a chance he'll never forgive me. That chance has been fading with each passing day. I don't know what the future holds for me or for us. What I do know is that I've learned the hardest lesson of all. The price of betrayal is higher than you can ever imagine, and sometimes, once you cross that line, there's no going back. And all I can do now is live with the consequences of my actions, hoping that maybe, someday, I can find a way to forgive myself.